Hello, listeners, and welcome. This is the Boogeyman Report, your official site for news from the left wing liberal radical Democrats, where each and every episode we're going to talk about truth, justice, and the American way. Let's get started, shall we? Today, I'd like to talk to the voters of America with some hard, cold truth. The truth is that on average, since 2012, over 90 million Americans have felt it was okay to put their lives in the hands of others and decide not to vote in elections. Each election. That's not a good number in a democracy, as it shows that over 36% of Americans, 1/3 of the registered voters, are disengaged in their futures. We all know that voting is one of the most important rights we have in America, that right to vote freely. And yet, a pretty significant portion of us just don't care, or so it would seem. So the boogeyman did a little digging for some truth, and here's what I found. Hundreds of thousands of non-voters would vote if they could. Voters need identification to vote in 36 states, which means 21 million Americans who don't have government-issued photo ID are at risk of not voting. Financial barriers, the lack of access to transportation, and limited information can make it difficult for older people, people of color, and low-income people to obtain an ID. Multiple barriers get in the way for people living in poverty, as the U.S. Census found that 47% of eligible citizens with household incomes of less than $20,000 did not vote in 2012. Sunday is the most common voting day around the world except U.S. Election Day, which falls on a Tuesday in this country, and it is not a federal holiday, presenting a dilemma for many workers who don't get paid time off to go to polling places or wait in line. While early voting and mail-in voting gives citizens more flexibility, not all states offer these options, and Trump and the Republicans are trying to stop even this voting altogether. 15% of registered voters don't vote in the presidential election because they don't feel their vote would make a difference. One survey found that half of the participants didn't bother to research the election because they didn't think their vote impacted the government, even though voting is one of the few ways for citizens to push forward policies they support. The truth is, that's a lot of non-voting to swallow in a democracy facing such a full frontal attack on its very foundation, and we have to change it, folks. Ask, look, listen, find, assist any person who is legally eligible to vote, and let's get them engaged in America. Help them get an ID. Give them a ride. Register them to vote. If the ship is going to sink and go down in flames with a man who would be king steering it directly into the flames, we had best get our feet set to put up a decent fight and stop the fire before it consumes us all. You gotta vote like you mean it, America, and take 3 friends with you to vote. And that's the truth. Justice. The Boogeyman's Boogie Justice Award today recognizes its newest recipient, Kate Rogers, the CEO of a nonprofit managing the Alamo, who resigned after a powerful Republican state official criticized her publicly, suggesting that her views aren't compatible with the history of the Texas shrine. Kate Rogers said in a statement Friday that she had resigned the day before after Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick wrote a letter to the Alamo Trust Boards of Directors suggesting that she either resigned or be removed. Patrick criticized her over an academic paper questioning the GOP-controlled legislature's education policies and suggesting she wanted the historic site in Texas to have a broader focus. It seems now that Texas is trying to change its own history and hide anything that doesn't represent a white way of history, and to minimize any other races or indigenous people who may have played a part in the history of the Alamo. It's the latest episode in an ongoing conflict over how the U.S. tells its story. Patrick's call for Rogers' ouster follows President Donald Trump's pressure to get Smithsonian museums in Washington to put less emphasis on slavery and other dark parts of America's past. Well, Kate wouldn't stand for it, and she resigned. Now that's justice. Good job, Kate. The American way. Folks, the American way continues to come under attack by the failing man who would be king, as he attempts to use his power to attack and ignore the very people he is supposed to consider we the people. It seems that the despot is determining whether a state receives federal disaster aid under the Trump administration, and it appears to boil down to their vote in the 2024 presidential election. Donald Trump unlocked federal emergency agency aid for several states this week, Alaska, Nebraska, and North Dakota, but he denied it to others along party lines. Once again, the con man, now occupying the highest office in the land, shows his complete disdain for all Americans who suffer as he plays king with their lives. America, this is not the American way, period. It is stupid, ignorant, callous, and shows the complete mental meltdown of this tyrant and mental midget, and does nothing but continue to illustrate to we the people of his failings and his own callous hatred for our very democracy. So, America, the way is to stand up to this idiot, give him hell in the streets, vote his fool cronies out of office, and take back our country. Viva la Revolution! As I say goodbye, I want to thank you for taking the time to stop by and take a listen. It is important that we the people continue to drown out the political noise, the conspiracy theories, and the lies, which are so full of hatred and false divisions, and start listening to the people that mean the most to us in our lives, each other. It is time we pushed back together as one America, and I want to help that happen with truth, justice, and the American way. And I promise you this, I will never stop trying to educate my fellow Americans to the evil now in the government, even if we don't agree. That's the American way. Until next time, peace out from just another left-wing radical liberal Democrat, and please don't forget to click subscribe and tell 2 friends so you never miss another episode of The Boogeyman Report.